Hey guys, it's Liv here. In today's video, I want to try and make my tiering predictions for all of the new Pokemon going into Scarlet and Violet. Now this will also include any new Pokemon that came from Legends Arceus, and this is solely because of the fact they have yet to actually enter a competitive scene. So if you guys enjoy this type of content and you want to see more videos like it, leave a like on the video and subscribe for more content just like this. We're just going to see how Scarlet and Violet does. There's no real sub goal, but obviously a subscription is also appreciated. And comment your thoughts in the description, in the comment section. I can't talk today, I'm so sorry, but comment your thoughts down below so that way then I can interact with you guys and I can get your guys' opinions on this sort of stuff. But with that said, let's get started. So I know this is on Tier Maker, but I'm going to mention very quickly, there's a lot of Pokemon that are new before you take a look at your screen too closely. But two, I know this is on Tier Maker. I just feel like this is the best way to illustrate the point. It's not an actual tier list video, but similar to there was something else I did pretty recently where I pre-ranked everything, and I think that makes the most sense. It's for the Dex League guides. I think this truthfully makes the most sense for this sort of quality. There was about 100 mons here, and this video would have been over an hour long of information that I basically already mentioned, but I'm trying to concise it into a bit more of a nice visual for anyone, and I'm gonna go into why and what these Pokemon will do in their tier, and some movesets they might be able to run very quickly for everything, just because I think that now that we have a lot more information on how stuff works, there's a lot better of a way to actually get the information out there, especially with the fact that we do have, one, new images to look off so you know what Pokemon to look out for, and two, so then you guys know what stuff actually does seem to do in the tiers. But basically though, I've went through, including all the Hisui mons, despite them being home transfers, just because again, these do impact the game. So we'll start off with our Ubers tier. These are all Pokemon I think get banned, and I'm going to go over them actually. This is the one area where I'm going to go over them out of the order from what they're here in, because I am going to actually go over this tier in particular in ban order. And this is solely for the fact that I do think that this makes more sense to approach in terms of how we go about this. And it's mostly because of the fact that otherwise, like, this isn't a tier where you just use the Pokemon and they rise here. No, this is a tier for Pokemon that get banned because they were so good in OU. It's basically a whole ban list that gets its own tier. Unlike the UU ban list here, that's just play it in OU. So Koraidon and Miraidon are first. These are definitives. If you've ever played Ubers, typically the box arts are there and they will, if anything, get tested to bring down, but they never get tested to go back to Ubers. And these two are really good box arts in general. They're absolute monsters. Dragon Electric and Dragon Fighting for Miraidon and Koraidon respectively is absolutely insane offensively. I think in singles, Koraidon will be slightly better, which is the red one right here. I think it'll be slightly better, but I think truthfully, if either one of them ended up being like one of the better Pokemon, I wouldn't be shocked. I do know a lot of people on the Legends vid commented that they thought that Koraidon will be worse because it's weak to Fairy 4 times, and I'd like to point out that I actually do think that this is a little bit of a logical fallacy, because I think that in this sort of case, one of the best things you'd be looking for is to pair this with Fairy types. It is such a good Fairy type partner, and it's a role that Miraidon can't actually do. With Koraidon's case, despite being 4 times weak to Fairy, one of the best Pokemon in Ubers typically, at least for a Nadex Ubers, since we don't really have a lot of Pokemon here, the moment at least, is Duskman and Solgaleo. They're two of the better, especially Duskman. It's one of the best Pokemon you could run. It's a great partner. Fairies will not mean anything. You could just switch in Duskman and you're fine. Even if Zacian Crown gets banned still, you can switch in Duskman. And on top of this as well, this is a great steal killer for Xerneas, because of the fact that with its ability, even for Duskman matchups, you still get the Sun Boost, which is great to get a pretty much essentially stab Flare Blitz with your ability. Actually, I think it's a 1.3 times power, but even still, the fact that you could still get that boost for fire attacks, which you do get Flare Blitz in your moveset, is pretty big for the Duskmane matchup. So I do think personally this is a really good option to partner with Xerneas if anything. Miraidon's still going to be filthy. This will still be a great option for stuff like Kyogre, for example, and I could totally see Assault Vest or Boot Sets running around, as well as like Choice Scarf Specs, etc. But realistically, these two will be the best. From here, I think our day 1 ban within 24 hours of the tier activating a Smogon is Iron Valiant. I will say that Quark Drive and Photosynthesis do function differently than what it seemed like. Initially, this was pitched as by a lot of different leakers who got it wrong, as if this was the Moxie raise, which is incorrect. Instead, you don't even need the KO to farm, but you don't get boosted every time you get a KO. Instead, it's just a +1 boost to whatever your most proficient stat is, which is different from Beast Boost, because Beast Boost only does it on KO. This is just a single one. It's not an actual stat raise, so your opponent can't actually like clear that stat raise with like a haze, for example. It just exists. So you would basically need to Intimidate to continue dropping if the status attack. Otherwise, you're kind of out of luck. But I think that Iron Valiant will be the first ban regardless. Whether Quark Drive did or didn't function like this, it's kind of absurd, and you don't even really need the ability most of the time. 130 attack, 120 special attack, and 116 speed with a terrifying typing of Fairy Fighting with incredible stabs such as Close Combat and Spirit Break on the physical side, as well as Moonblast and Focus Blast on the special side. You get setup options for both physical and special. So again, I can't really see this Pokemon being allowed. Even that alone would be a lot, but of course this thing gets coverage, stuff like Knock Off, Shadow Sneak, Leaf Blade. You get so much coverage in this Pokemon, both physically and specially. I think this is objectively a 24-hour ban, if OU doesn't already ban it. Next up, of course, we do have actually Chien-Pao, and initially this is one where I will say this changed a lot actually in my personal opinion, solely because of the fact that we figured out, one, how this thing's ability worked, which is so much better than initially thought, but we also figured out how the Paradox Bonds worked, which is a little worse than we thought, but not game changing. But Sword of Ruin, basically, this thing, it basically functions like Dark Aura, where Sword of Ruin, this thing drops the defense stat of every Pokemon besides itself, and it's not like Intimidate, so your opponent cannot switch out. It is a 25% stat drop to your defense stat, which is basically, you keep 75%, so let's say your stat's 400 in defense, you're at 300 now, which is pretty damn good. I will say the 25% I think is, if anything, doing us justice, doing us a favor, considering the fact that it's not able to be switched around, and this would only be even more broken if it was a consistent thing, where you were just getting a stat, like a 50% drop, but it was also permanent. 25% is just the balancing here. That doesn't really make a huge difference. Getting that 25%, well, it doesn't make a huge difference in how broken this is, I should say. It doesn't make a lot of a difference. The fact that this is every time you enter the field and just stay on the field, 25% drop to all Pokemon's defense stats. This is going to be an absurd Pokemon, and we haven't even gotten to the actual moveset. This thing gets a better fighting move than Weavile does. This is just better Weavile in every way. And I'm talking about better than Gen 8 Weavile, because I know Weavile lost a lot, and I don't want the analogy to be lost on people. This is a better Gen 8 Weavile. It has 10 base speed higher, and that speed difference makes a big difference when we're considering common Pokemon that end up being in OU. Like Koko will eventually be here, for example, but even still, this is able to tie Pokemon such as Flutter Mane, which we'll get into that in a bit. But this speed here is a pretty big deal. 125 speed is 135 speed is already amazing. You get the same attack stat as Weavile. You're bulkier than Weavile. Your special attack is 90, which is almost actually pretty usable. You get Sacred Sword as a fighting option, which is better than Weavile Brick Break. You get Ruination, which is basically just Koko's Nature's Madness, which is good if you, for some reason, find a Pokemon that can comfortably switch around you. I'm telling you, I think this Pokemon, truthfully, if Paradox Gallade isn't the first ban, aka Iron Valiant, I think that Chien-Pao actually could be. But this Pokemon will actually be absurd, in my opinion. Truthfully, I think that this thing functioning such as with an aura-based ability, truly broken. We have Roaring Moon up next. This is basically just better Ments. You get stuff like U-Turn, you get a stronger attack stat with 139, a much stronger speed at 119. This will be, objectively speaking, a really broken Pokemon. Even without Intimidate to help it set up, it doesn't matter. This typing is so good, and it's not boots for line either. Truthfully, I would just run the booster energy and get the speed boost or the attack boost and just start farming KOs. This Pokemon as well, despite being 4 times fairy weak, one of the best switch-ins to this would probably be Sylveon as far as defensive fairies go, and you get Throw Chop in your moveset, so you can kind of fuck with Sylveon that way too, because this is a no Clefable meta. So I think a Roaring Moon will get banned. Next up is Palafin Hero. This is basically just you switch out once and you get the stat boost, which I think that this particular form of Palafin will be banned. The other one is so dog shit though, it will not matter. But this form has 100 HP, 160 attack, 97 defense, 106 special attack, 87 speed death, and 100 speed. I think this will just be G-Darm Syndrome, where it's just going to function like a Scarf option, and it will be kind of broken. As far as moves this thing goes, this thing gets Flip Turn at the very least. It also gets stuff like Wave Crash, Aqua Jet. I'm pretty sure Jet Punch is its signature move. Well, I know it's a signature move, but I'm pretty sure that Jet Punch, yep, it's a priority option actually, where this user summons a Torrent and it always goes first. So a 60 base power water move always goes first. This objectively will be a really good mod in Ubers, actually. I think it'll pair really well with Kyogre when Kyogre does come to the games. And I think it'll just be really good for being a good breaker on rain, if nothing else. But even still, you know, I get the water spam as it for everyone. Doubles, I think, is still some merit too. But the point being is this will just be G-Darm, but water type. And I think it'll be really good. Flutter Mane I could see going before Palafin Hero, but this typing in general is really good. Ghost Fairy, really obnoxious speed stat at 135, as well as a good special attack stat at 135. You get Calm Mind for setup, which is pretty decent. And as far as Flutter Mane goes for coverage wise, you get a lot of options, stuff like Thunderbolt, Icy Wind. Icy Wind's more so support based, to be fair, but it does have usage. You get Power Gem, Dark Pulse, you get a lot. I think this Pokemon will truly be absolutely absurd. This will probably be one of the best options, and I think anything in this range of 1 through 5 could truthfully all get banned at once. The order is a little shaky, but I think that if nothing else, the top 2 are set with Iron Valiant into Chien-Pao, and then the other 3 are kind of just whatever order they end up being in. Enamoris will be last on this list, and it's solely because of home transfer, but Enamoris gets a lot this gen. It keeps Contrary, thankfully, keeps a lot of its good coverage, such as Mystical Fire and Earth Power, and you also get Superpower now. So you actually have a way to take advantage of Contrary, and you still get Calm Mind for your special sets go. This will objectively be a really good Pokemon. As far as physical goes, you might be wondering, why run Contrary with Superpower? Well, you get stuff like Zen Headbutt for poisons, you also get stuff like Play Rough for stab. This will objectively be a really good Uber. Its speed even outpaces stuff like Garchomp, so, you know, some really good OU threats right there. They get outpaced by that. 106 is so gross. Moving on to our OU tier, these are all new mons for OU. I'm not going to go over everything once we start going to these lower tiers. I just wanted to justify my reason for the bans, but I'm going to go over a few pretty key ones. Kingambit, I think, will be a little less broken than I thought it would be. I could actually see this thing falling to UU because Supreme Overlord, it's not a stat raise, similar to how the Auras are not stat raises. This is only a 1.1 modifier to a 1.5 modifier, depending on how many allies fainted. Still, I think it'll be an OU mon. Really good Sucker Punch user. Knockoff loss kind of sucks, but I can see this being OU baby UU at worst. And just a tier definitively above wherever Bisharp lands, which is why if you look down at the UU list, I put it in the UU tier. But some other noteworthy things, a lot of these Paradox mons are going to be pretty good. Iron Bundle is just going to be a really fast option for Water Ice. This one could also maybe get a ban. It does get Freeze Dry and Pump, but its coverage is a little limited outside of that. 124 special attack and 136 speed, though, is nothing to just look over. This will be an objectively good Pokemon. As far as other things go, you get U-Turn as well, so you could basically just run like U-Turn, Pump, Freeze Dry, and Ice Beam, and just kind of kick teeth in, and I think that will be enough for a lot of teams, considering Water's really good against a lot of Steel matchups, especially without Ferrothorn in the meta. This will honestly be a really terrifying option in my opinion. With Iron Moth, I think it's truthfully just the fact that its coverage is so good. With Fire, Poison, Electric, Flying, Bug, like you're hitting a lot of the metagame with this, even despite not having a setup option. This one could also maybe fall to UU, similar to Kingambit, and I think that wouldn't be a huge loss, but I think it'll be at least a noteworthy presence at 110 speed. It's going to be a great Fairy Killer, if nothing else. The Donphans, I think that Great Tusk will be slightly better, but they're both really good. This one has a ground fighting typing, and this one is ground steel, but this is really fast at 106 speed. So again, pretty good Fairy Killer in the making, as well as the Great Tusk one at the very least being just an incredible wall breaker, considering 87 speed on top of 131 attack with ground fighting. And it has 2 versions of close combat with Headlong Rush now, which is a ground type close combat. Still gets Rapid Spin and Knockoff. I think they'll both be pretty good. I lean slightly more to Great Tusk. With next up, we have the Ground Dark one. Again, the Aura thing is pretty busted, I can't lie. But even outside of the Aura thing for the Ground Dark one, I believe that, I forget what the Aura is in this Pokemon actually. I want to say this one's attack. Let's see. So this one is Vessel of Ruin. Yeah, this is special attack actually. Actually, no, I think this one is, let's see, Tinglu. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is Tinglu. I forget the names of these Pokemon in particular, I'll be honest, because they'll just look similar enough, or at least they feel like a similar enough. Yeah, this is Tinglu. So Tinglu, Ground Dark type, really good attack, really great bulk, 155 HP, 125 Phys Def, and 80 Speed Def. I could totally see this thing truthfully just being an Assault Vest Pokemon on a lot of teams and being kind of obnoxious to KO. Tinglu for coverage options, it gets stuff like, well, you get Earthquake for stab as well as you get stuff for utility with like spikes. Actually, it's good just be a bulky leftover spawn with the Phys Def tank. Its coverage isn't the best, but it does get body press, which would be pretty decent. If nothing else, for other dark types that would kind of sit on it, at least for a dark stab, that is. Truthfully, the ground will hit a lot of common darks anyway. But I think if nothing else, this will be a pretty decent threat for Tinglu. Same as the Fish. The Fish will also be really good, to be honest. This is a 135 special attack, 120 Speed Def, and 100 Speed Mon. I kind of expect this thing to run Scarf in a lot of teams and have Chi-Yu honestly just be a really good offensive piece. Chi-Yu definitely still gets a lot of good utility. That was stuff like Will-O-Wisp, for example. So also Memento. This will be kind of an obnoxious option on Sun. A great Nasty Plot user too. This has a lot going for it, and truthfully, I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of builds Chi-Yu has. This is my personal favorite as well. It's, you know, a little bit of bias in there, but I think it will objectively still be an OU mon. Fire Dark is going to be great, especially when a lot of these past Paradox Pokemon will probably want Sun up anyway. Sun really has never had a better meta, and Chi-Yu only benefits from this. As far as other noteworthy things go, Bascullegion got the Houndstone Signature move Last Respects, which basically these both get a move that 50 base power Physical Ghost. You also get plus 50 base power per Fainted Ally. So this will be an objectively really good Scarfer, a really great option on Rain with Swift Swim, and it's going to be a really great breaking option for Rain teams. Objectively, it will probably be one of, if not the best physical Rain Sweepers in the tier. We have Sneasler, which gets some Burden now. Really decent poison fighting. Will be a great cleaner for teams. This thing getting Stone Axe as well as the new move Sharpness, which does benefit from Stone Axe. This will be pretty decent for pivoting, as well as just a really good breaker. Great for setting up Stealth Rocks while attacking. Hisui Lilligant. This will be pretty surprisingly a really good pick for Sun as well. I think Shiyu and Hisui Lilligant will be a great core actually on Sun teams, considering that Hisui Lilligant is able to actually take advantage of stuff like Landorus Therian thanks to Ice Spinner. It's a great pivot still. It's a really obnoxious Sun option, and it's great for the speed aspect, whereas Shiyu would probably benefit more from breaking. But objectively speaking, these two will actually make Sun really viable in OU. I think it'll be the most viable weather personally, but Basket Legion could give it a run for its money for Rain. Ursaluna, I could see this actually getting a suspect test, I'll be honest. I might just be in the unpopular opinion here, but I think Ursaluna is a little bit oppressive. This thing is obnoxiously hard to kill. It has incredible options like Facade to take advantage of Guts, so it's also a really good breaker. This will single-handedly make Trick Room viable in my opinion. You get great options for setup like Sword Hits and Bulk Up. You get options like Close Combat and High Horsepower, well, Headlong Rush, as well as Drain Punch even for recovery. Objectively will be good. The starters will be whatever. These will probably both be like OU Fringe Bonds, but this one will be slightly better in singles in my opinion. Scovillain will be great because of the Sun benefit that Shiyu and Hisui Lilligant bring. I think it might fall a little bit down the line, but I think if nothing else, those two will make it more viable. Pawmot, this will definitely be viable solely because of Revival Blessing. Even still though, the speed and Iron Fist make this thing, if nothing else, actually kind of a threatening Pokemon. This does get Elemental Punches, if nothing else, which is pretty decent. 115 attack and 105 speed with Iron Fist. Yeah, I think this will be a decent mon. It's going to be a great option. Kilda Watchrill will be a great Rain Sweeper, just better Zapdos. Really, it's the best way to think of it. And Goldingo, this will be decent if nothing else as a plot option. It gets Shadow Ball and Flash Cannon as well as Focus Blast. I think truthfully those three with plot will probably be its best set. Moving on to the UU tier, we start to get in a lot of Pokemon that could be Fringe OU. For example, I think truthfully, I'm going to actually move the Fringe OU ones to the front real quick because I think that any of these... I want to say any of these 6 could probably be Fringe OU. Oh, oops, I put the Tinkaton thing in the wrong tier. I think any of these 7 right here, I think all could actually be pretty Fringe OU. And I think truthfully, most of this tier would have OU viability, besides like Bisharp if Kingambit was in there. But even still, it's not terrible. I will say these 7, if nothing else. Well, actually, no, I'm going to take out Samurott if nothing else, because I don't think Samurott actually does belong with that group. But I do think that these front 6 though, Sui Zorak is going to be a great Scarf option. Skeledirge is going to benefit a ton from being like the best unaware Pokemon besides Clodsire. But I think that Skeledirge, if nothing else, does benefit a little bit more from just being actually faster and a little more offensively potent. Clodsire will just benefit a ton from stalls, but Skeledirge might actually find a place on teams outside of stall. And I think that these two are going to kind of share the way that Clefable had once for OU. Enamor's Therian will be a great Assault Vest Pokemon as well as a great bulky Boots Calm Mind option. I think this is Esperata. I know it's ESP. I'm just forgetting how to say the name. Espartha. This gets Speed Boost as well as Frisk and Opportunist. I forget what Opportunist does, but Speed Boost will objectively be the best ability here with Calm Mind sets, and this will just try and Sword Power Sweep teams. I could see Espartha being like a UU ban and just being stuck in OUBL limbo. And I wouldn't be shocked by it. Pure Psychic's not the best, and its coverage is whatever, but truthfully, it's good enough. It will definitely be, in my opinion, at least a UU mon. We have the Pseudo Legendary, which I think will probably be UU personally, but I could see this one being OU. Truthfully, the fact that this doesn't have to worry about burns is pretty big for Baxcalibur, as well as the fact this has 1 of 45 attack and 87 speed with Dragon Dance and Ice Shard for priority. This will objectively be a decent mon. I don't know if it'll definitively be OU, but this one's probably the one I think most likely could rise to OU, just because Dragon Ice alone is pretty good, but Kyurem was mostly there because it also could pull off bulky sets, and this Pokemon can't really do that, so I don't know if it really will find a place. But to be fair, a lot of recovery mons losing out just on their PP count. A lot of just recovery mons also just being really nerfed to Chen, so such as the slows, for example, and Barathorn just not existing, as well as Clefable not existing. This could maybe find a place. It'll be very weird. Tinkaton, I think this is what the final stage is called. I know that it's one of the stages, I just forget which one in particular. But yeah, Tinkaton, this will objectively be a really good UU mon, but I think it could be a really decent OU mon, if nothing else, depending on what Star Course form. I think it's solely because of the Gigaton Hammer plus Sword Dance combination. You also get Player Off and Knockoff, which will both be pretty good on this. For other noteworthy UU picks, we get stuff like Hisui Samurott with Sharpness and Sucker Punch and Knockoff, as well as stuff like Sacred Sword for coverage and to take advantage of Sharpness. Objectively, this will be a really good UU meta pick in my opinion. Bisharp's here. This could maybe fall to RU, but I think it'll be UU just because of Defiant being really good. This will be a great anti-defog option for the few teams that still have it. Titan will make Hail viable in UU. I could even see Titan getting Hail banned in UU. I could also see Titan still having OU viability. I wouldn't be too shocked. Arctozolt managed to pull it off last gen, and Titan just seems like a better kit. A lot better coverage than Arctozolt had, even if Bolt Beak was objectively a much more broken move than anything this thing has. But I could see this thing actually being OU, just more so dependent on when A9 comes back, in my opinion, because it will not be OU with Abomasnow Hail. Cyclozar getting regen and Shed Tail will be pretty good. I think this will be UU RU when Shed Tail gets, and Shed Tail will get banned from these tiers, and it'll be like a UU RU sort of thing. It might have OU viability with Shed Tail. I don't think Shed Tail will get banned from that tier personally, but I don't know. I think it will enable a lot of really good class cannons in UU, if nothing else, until Shed Tail gets banned. And the typing with regen alone is going to be decent. It's just going to be a budget torn T. We have the Flamingo Pokemon, Flamigo. This is a fighting flying type. Gets Co-Star, which Co-Star I believe just allows it to copy stat changes, which is pretty decent. It's just like a ability activated Psych Up, which is again pretty decent for it, if nothing else. The speed is whatever. The 115 attack though is what really matters, especially with a Scrappy ability. I think this will just be a worse version of Galar Zapdos, which is the only reason it's UU, because I think Galar Zapdos will just be OU. But this will basically just be a budget Galar Zapdos, if you will. It gets pretty much all of the same important moves. For example, Flamigo does get access to stuff such as Brave Bird. You get I think, no, you do not get High Jump Kick. I'm pretty sure you get Close Combat at least, which will be pretty decent, if nothing else. I actually do forget. If this thing doesn't get Close Combat, it's kind of garbage, but it gets Sword Dance at the very least U-turn. Yeah, this does get Close Combat. I thought it did. I was kind of blinking for a second. But this will probably be one of the better UU mons. Again, could see a UU BL ban. I don't think it'll be OU. Iron Jugulus, decent team options, still probably gonna be UU. Hydro Pump and Flamethrower save this thing from being like RU and U trash. Zeraledge, a lot of people might be wondering why Zeraledge. This thing got Shadow Sneak, which will be pretty decent. This is a 1.0.1 update, so it should be available day one. I just know a lot of people were thinking that this mon had like no good ghost moves, and I don't know if that's entirely true. This will probably have stuff realistically for movesets. If I had to guess, I think a Zeraledge will probably run, honestly, Sword Stance. Sword Stance, the signature move Bitter Blade, it'll probably then go with Close Combat and Shadow Sneak, and I think it'll probably be the main set. If Terra is still allowed, at the very least day one, Terra Blast will probably be ran over something here, or maybe even just 4 attacks with Terra Blast could be really good. But if nothing else, Zeraledge will be pretty decent. Cloud's I already talked about, and if nothing else, the last Pokemon, I think this is, I forget actually how to say this thing. I think it's Maluza. I forget. The point being though is this definitely this Pokemon right here, that last one, gets a basic Shell Smash version of Clangor's Soul, where it's +2/+2/+2 for special attack, and speed. But in return, this Pokemon does end up losing 1/3 of its health. This will still be a really, it's Veluza, okay. This will be a pretty decent Pokemon in UU. I think this thing getting Sharpness as well will be really good because it gets stuff like Psycho Cut for stuff, as well as Aqua Cutter, which is a new water type cutting move that is just water type Psycho Cut. This will objectively be a really good Shell Smasher. Well, signature move basically being Shell Smash option for the tier, and will be really good offensively speaking. RU, we have some decent options. We have a lot of Paradox Pokemon, and it's truthfully just the fact that I think that none of these can tier lower than RU because of the fact they can instantly get a stat boost that will immediately help them. I could see them maybe falling if Boost Energy immediately gets banned, as well as Drought and Electric Terrain respectively for Electric Surge. But otherwise though, I think these are here to stay, at least in the RU tier. The worst one being T-Tar probably, just because it's 4 times ground weak. We have the Slug at the very least here as well, which the Slug basically, it's just this, I forget what this one is, but as far as the abilities go, this one, I want to say this one ends up being the Spidef booster, or Spidef dropper, Wo-Chien. Let's see. This one is Tablets of Ruin. This one's actually attack, so it's not bad. But the forward type's weakness to bug isn't great, especially when it's a little slow. But it's got a lot going for it, stuff like synthesis and knockoff. So I think it'll be a decent RU mon. I think it will have better options for ground checking in the UU and OU tier. But Wo-Chien having that ability, at least if nothing else, could give it viability. And this is probably of the RU mons the one I could see the most rising as we go through the gen. Even just to OU, to be honest, but I think that it will probably sit in the RU tier personally. Like, I feel pretty confident in saying that, just with maybe some OU viability installs. For other Pokemon though, Armor Eaters will just be decent because of the fire type close combat for the special side, as well as weak armor. I totally see this thing running focus assets with weak armor and just being pretty decent offensively. Annihilate fighting Ghost, pretty bulky. This one might get a ban from RU, I'll be honest. The typing is pretty good. It's got 110, 80 and 90 for bulk on its stats, with 115 attack and 90 speed with Defiant. This one, actually, I'm going to bump this one up to UU. I think the typing is way too good with Ghost Fighting. It's basically just got Marsh Shadow typing, which is pretty obnoxious. As far as Tatsugiri, it's Water Dragon with Plot. Enough said there. This thing gets great options offensively. Houndstone, this will be great for like a low tier sand option. I could see Hippopotas even being ran with this just solely to get the sand up. We have Reverum, Filter with the Poison Steel will be decent. I guess Magnet Rise for the ability as well, for a move, as well as potentially Air Balloon, which could help alleviate the 4 types ground weakness. Grafaiai could be decent. I think this thing gets a lot going for it, such as Swords Dance, for example, as well as some pretty sick coverage, because again, it is a normal type, so Grafaiai did kind of win the lottery in that regard. For example, this thing gets stuff like Low Kick, U-Turn, Shadow Claw, Gunk Shot. This thing gets acrobatics. You get a lot for your move pool. Grafaiai, if nothing else, I think this could be a really good Sword Sense option with Unburden, but we'll have to see. For returning Pokemon in this tier, or at the very least, finally, we also have this one, the other dog. I'm forgetting what this thing's name is, I'll be honest, but I know it's one of the other dogs. This is the Dark type one with Stakeout, Intimidate. It's Mavistiff. Okay. It's gonna be a pretty bulky option. I think this will just be a really good tank, if nothing else, with the pure dark typing, 120 attack with Stakeout. I think this will be pretty interesting. It's gonna be kind of RU's best function around Pursuit, which will be great because we have some good options here for Ghost and Psychic types. Typhlosion, for one, this will be great on Sun teams. For one, this thing got Focus Blast. Well, for two, this thing got Focus Blast and Frisk, which will be decent for scouting options such as boots or other items. Also, Focus Blast will be great for dark matchups, so it no longer will lose immediately to this Mavistiff Pokemon. But also, you can probably throw this on with a really good low tier Sun option, even if it's Pranks or Sun. And this plus Arcanine will probably be really monstrous in the tier, in my opinion. Overcool will be decent. I think this will be a good anti-rain option, or anti-sun option, I should say, with rain benefiting it, if nothing else. The poison dark typing is really strong for it, and it gets some good utility such as Taunt, Toxic Spikes, and Spikes, as well as Sword Dance to benefit. This gets Asper Wing, which is a speed boosting option now, which could be great with Tinderland sets. It will not matter for Sheared Force, but it's pretty decent. And finally, this one doesn't really care about Last Respects, I'll be honest, because it's a special set, but it'll still be decent on Swift Swim adaptability teams, if nothing else. And then this one gets scrappy with a lot of fighting options, so if nothing else, Hisui Decidueye will be pretty decent. When we get into the NUPU mons, a lot of these, I'll be honest, it's more so into what they don't do. These two, firefighting and water fighting respectively for the Tauroses, these will be not bad options, if nothing else. They'll be great offensive pieces for teams, really good breakers. Just, I don't know, I think that Tauros in general, with the 110 attack and 100 speed, it's just going to be kind of outclassed as far as fighting types go. It's a lot better than base Tauros, I will say. Being an actual fighting type is a lot better than a pure normal type. I could see these maybe going to RU, but I don't really know. We have Hisui Quill. This will be a decent spiker. I think it'll just be a worse version of Overquill, and it's purely because Overquill got a lot of good offensive options. We have the low ticks. This will be decent, if nothing else, in NU with stuff like Sucker Punch, as well as a good speed at 92 with Tinted Lens and 102 for the attack stat. This will be a pretty good pivot in the tier, in my opinion, and I think if nothing else, this will put a lot of pressure on a lot of psychic types in low tier, which you have a lot of them. For example, we have Rabska, which also gets the Revival Urban move, Revival Blessing move. I think if nothing else, this will probably just get a complex ban for the signature move, at least with the Revival Blessing. This thing gets good special options, if nothing else. 115 special attack and 100 speed F with Trick Room. This could maybe be viable in Trick Room in the tier. If nothing else, this thing gets a lot of good utility as well, with coverage option. Well, with move options such as this thing gets. I'm pretty sure this got Sticky Web. If I remember, it might not. I know it gets like Dazzling Gleam for Dark, Sword Power, which is great because you do get Calm Mind for a setup, as well as I believe you get Nasty Plot, but even still, Calm Mind would probably be better on this. For level up movesets, Rapska gets, well, as I said already, Revival Blessing, but this thing sadly doesn't really get a good recovery move outside of that, which is a little unfortunate. I'm pretty sure though with egg moves, this thing got it. I just forget what this thing's base stage is, so I actually have to scroll for it. But here we go. Yeah, it does get Recover and Memento and Cosmic Power, all of which could be pretty decent on this. Especially being a Bug Psychic type, this could run like Cosmic Power, Recover, Stored Power, and Bug Buzz and be pretty decent. And it's going to be a lot better with Orbeetle, well, than Orbeetle in that regard, because it actually has a good offensive stat. Girafarig or Farigiraf, this will be decent if nothing else just because of the fact this is immune to priority, and it's a normal Psychic type, so it means it's at least a normal type, well, a Psychic type that's immune to Ghost types, which will be pretty decent. The Speed Tier nerf was a little bit bad, being only base 60, but this could be a decent Trick Room option. I will say, I don't know what the Parakeet forms are, but the Parakeet here is going to resemble the one that gets specifically for the abilities. Let me double check the ability combination, because I know they both get Guts and they both get Intimidate. I think one of them gets Sheer Force though. Well, two of them get Sheer Force and two of them get Guts. Oh, it's Hustle they both get. Okay. I think a Guts one truthfully will be the higher one and the Sheer Force one will be the lower one, but they'll both be kind of terrible. With Belly Bolt will be good as a static mod, if nothing else, a good mod to just kind of paralyze everything. On Trick Room, if it ends up being viable here though, that could be a good Electromorphosis abuser, if nothing else, to try and take advantage of charge on a Trick Room turn, but truthfully, again, I think it would benefit a lot more. Well, actually, no, that Shadow Tree would benefit a lot more in doubles. It doesn't really matter for here. Orthworm, this thing is a steel type that's immune to ground attacks, which is pretty good. I actually meant to put this one in RU. I don't know why this is sitting here in NU. I must have made the mistake when I was rushing through this. You live and you learn. The mouses though, I will say, objectively I said these would be terrible, but I realized they do get a rapid spin option that's also Dragon Dance, which is pretty good. I think it just bumps it up to NU though, truthfully. I think that the 75 attack is a little bit weak, especially when your best damaging option would be boosting this with the Tidy Up move, plus then going for Technician attacks. So I don't know how I feel about this mon. Pure Normal also kind of sucks as a typing, but 111 speed is pretty good, especially when it also does boost its own speed. Bombador, or however you say it. I know it's like bomb something. So yeah, Bombarder. Here we go. Rocky Payload. I forget what this does for an ability. I actually do need to double check this one. I do remember. Yeah, powers up rock moves. Okay, so it basically gets like 3 different stabs, which is pretty decent if nothing else. For the low tier, at least. Having an option around other flying types. This has an option around itself now as well. With 82 speed and 103 attack, this could be actually pretty decent as like a Rock Slide option. I'm pretty sure this thing does get Rock Slide in its Learn set. As far as Bombardier goes, this thing gets options such as Power Jump at the very least, and yep, Stone Edge. So Stone Edge could be pretty decent. Stealth Rocks, you get some good options with Momentum as well with like U-Turn. So I think this will be a decent low tier option. I think it'll be a really good NU option, actually, probably one of the better ones here. Dark Flying is a gross typing. Cloth gets regen, which will be pretty decent on AV sets. It could also maybe be a good Anger Shell option with Shell Smash, basically in that regard. Well, the ability being Shell Smash, I should say, because I don't believe that Cloth gets Shell Smash in its moveset. But I'll actually have to double check that because Cloth thankfully is a single stage mon, so I can check that. Just get knockoff at least, which is pretty good. I think that sadly though, this thing missing out on Shell Smash is pretty bad, but Sword Dance will still be good enough if nothing else. This is a pure fairy type. It's the only reason it gets the tier. The stats or whatever, the move set is kind of shit. But Fido's evolution though, Dash Bun, the Wellbank body being a physical attack booster that's immune to fire is pretty good, but I think Aromathel will just be better, and this thing doesn't really get good recovery. Bramblin, if nothing else, this will be good because it enables Tailwind, or more so Bramblegast enables Tailwind basically. Finally though, I'm not going to go too in depth on these ones. Most of them are NFVs of other stuff, and it's just because their fully evolves are so good. For the ones that are noteworthy though, the Dunsparce and the Dunsparce, I think both will be NU. I'm just not sure which will be better. One will be NU, one will be, I don't know, one will be NU, one will be PU. I put them both in PU though, because they're both kind of PU quality mons in their own right. Actually, no, I think that's a lie. One will be untiered and one will be PU. But they're both in PU for now, just because I don't know which it will be. Pure Fighting Tauros gets here just because the other two are better. Electrode's move is only not untiered because of the fact that its move got switched to a Mind Blown option for Grass type, which will be decent if nothing else to handle opposing ground matchups. But it's still going to be pretty terrible. This is going to be basically a suicide lead, but Grass Electric is pretty good. It just only gets Grass Electric options now. But I will say Volt Switch is a pretty good buff on this and nothing else. Great for momentum keeping. The Sneasel, I think this keeps the tier solely because of the fact that it's a poison fighting type with 115 speed. A little bit weak. It's really psychic weak, and I think we have a lot of good psychic assist gen, so maybe it won't stay there, but it has enough going for it. This gets here solely because it's Fairy Steel. Fairy Steel alone is just a really good typing. This gets it because its ability is only going to be dropping speed anytime it uses status. It's pretty terrible. The rest, I'll be honest, I don't really have a lot to say about. They're just got to ship mons. And then the untiered, it's mostly just worse Oink alone. Terrible stats, like Magikarp level stats, and just worse than Fergraph. And I think that even still we have a better option here than in Weirder, which at least, you know, if nothing else, a Weirder gets Intimidate, which is pretty good. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this tier list. I'll be linking the full list if you guys want to make your own down below, and join the Discord and post your tier list there. I would love to see your guys' predictions on what the Pokemon will end up being like. But if you guys enjoy this video and you want to see more like it, leave a like and subscribe for more content. Shout out to our channel members, of course, being Josh K Ultra Player, Mia, and Zeke Zero. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you want to become a channel member today, link to that down below, as well as the join button. We'll look forward to seeing you guys there. Until then, peace out, guys.